We want to have so many visitors. We want to see all these things. Well, you don't know if you succeed if you don't write those down and know where you're going. You're putting some measurable things together, and having those helps you to know, well, did I meet my goals? Did I not meet my goals? So those are good, but you have to have influence over people. And listen, I have had a million questions asked me. How do you get volunteers? How do you get leaders and things like that? Let me tell you, the church is the number one worst thing. I have read so many books. I've seen podcasts. I've done everything. And I'm sure you guys have as well, is what is the secret in getting volunteers and building the team and things like that? First thing, stop putting it in your bulletin that you need people. Okay. That doesn't work. Listen, if it did, we would never need a volunteer for anything. For me, I don't want just every Joe Blow out in the church to come work for me, okay? To be in my ministry. Now, you might be different, but for me, in kids ministries, youth ministries, there's some things that I have criteria that I have to make sure that people are going to meet that criteria before you jump into a kids ministry. First off, are you going to pass a background check? Are you going to pass those things? You can't be around my kids or anybody else's kids if you can't pass that background check. So you have to have some criteria there. And so having that influence in setting down and putting those things together, you don't need to put a wide, broad scope and say, hey, I just need people to come in and fill spaces in our Sabbath school or in something else. It just doesn't work. And for me, a part of my budget that I had was taking people out to eat or sending gifts or things like that. Because what I found that worked the best for me, bottom line, worked the best for me was one-on-one. If I could talk to you and get face to face with you and share my vision with you and how that you would play a part of making that vision come true and how you were going to change lives in doing that, that won people. For example, I had a guy named Tom Talent. Tom Talent was a burly guy, okay? He was a burly guy, he was a construction guy, really just robust, okay? Really gruff in a lot of ways. And didn't do a lot in the church. He was a handyman and things like that. And God spoke to me one day and said that he needs to be on your team. And I was like, really, God? Really? That wouldn't really be the person that I would want on my team. But as I kind of prayed about it a little bit, I had a spot. And I felt like he would be the person for that. And so I went up to him one day and I said, Tom, I want you on my team. He goes, I don't work for kids. I don't do ministry that way. No way, no how. It's not going to happen. And so we sat down and talked and I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to put a mascot costume on, and I want you to come out and do the motions to our songs during worship and do that. He goes, that gets hot inside of. There's no way I would do that. I would, no way. I said, listen, don't give me an answer. Here's what I want you to do. If you'll do this for me, then I will take whatever decision you make. Okay. I said, listen, I want you to pray about it. And then you come back and tell me. I go, because God already spoke to me. So now God's got to speak to you. And so the next day he comes up and he says, Pastor Darren, I want to be a part of your ministry. I want to do that. And I said, really? So God spoke to him. He said, no, God already had spoken to me. I was just fighting him. Even when you were talking to me, he goes, I was kind of jumping inside about it and excited about it. So God works that way. And I know that sometimes we are so desperate that we just try to pull everybody in. But it's having that influence and sitting down and talking to people where you really make your team better than anything else. I mean, it's really what makes the team come together, because one thing you will get about a team is family. They're my family. They're people during the times that I'm there and even not there and no longer at the church, that we still have conversations. We still talk. We celebrate. We grieve together. Those type of things that a good team does. And you build that. You as a leader, whether you're just over a Sabbath school or if you're over different types of ministries, your group ministries and things like that, your kids church, any of that, whatever you're over, understand that you've got influence. And whether it's over one person, over 150, 200 people, you have to use that influence in great ways. So let me share my screen a minute. And again, I will put this PowerPoint in the share thing so you guys can download it as well. But take notes. If you got pens, pencils, anything like that, go ahead and take some notes. But let me go ahead and share a screen with you. And let me just kind of share a little bit with you here. And so let's do this. Let me go ahead and do this. And let's do this. So let me show you a easy class these. Man, my tongue is like twisted today. 4, 9 through 10. It says 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has no one to lift him up. Now, I really think that verse is huge. It's really huge, is that we have to sit down and learn to work with other people. And I always had this comedy thing that I always said. They always said, how's church? How's working at the church? I said, church would be great if we didn't have to deal with people. But if you've dealt with people, understand it's just church. And church is a building full of different people, different mindsets, different political views, everything. And so for you as the minister and you as the leader, you have to sit down and put things aside that maybe you might disagree with and learn to sit down and use that influence and see people that whether they disagree with you at different things, that they could still play a vital part. Because listen, we cannot do this alone. If you think you could sit down and do ministry alone, great, but you're only going to get so far. It's better to have people with you. And listen, it's great to succeed as a solo person in ministry, but who do you celebrate with? Yourself. But when you have a whole team, listen, the celebration is a whole lot bigger. For me, I always wanted to sit down and bring people in, and I wanted to see them win. That brought me joy. It took a while, because I kind of felt like I was the main man. I needed to be the one in charge, and I needed to do everything. And when I finally realized that I could have joy when other people on my team succeeded, that was great. And I was so proud. It was like a proud papa moment when one of my leaders would come and say something, or I would hear one of our kids say something about their leader. It was like a proud daddy moment, Dad. I was like, wow, they hit it. That's awesome. And I knew I was proud, but you know who else was proud? Our Heavenly Father. Our Heavenly Father was smiling, and that was really huge. So we have to remember that this is just not our show. It might be your ministry, it might be your vision, but understand it's a whole lot easier to get there when we have a team underneath us to be able to do that and to make that happen. So let's go over a couple things quickly and share with you. It is, again, it is good to see all of you today. And so let's do this. Let me go ahead and hit the next screen. And one of the big things that you will need to do as a leader is define and communicate responsibilities and the challenge. Okay, you have to communicate, and you have to let them know what the responsibilities are, if that makes sense. Listen, if they don't know what to expect out of you, or if they don't know their responsibilities, they're going to fail every time. So setting your team up to win, you help them to see that, hey, here is what we're going to do. We communicate. And so here's a couple of things I'll talk about. Communicate specific responsibilities. What specifically that you really need out of them? What kind of time frame do you need them? What days do you need them? How much time do you think they need to prepare? You need to give them those responsibilities. If they're in a room and they're taking kids out to the restroom, You need to let them know. You need to stand with them. You need to be outside the door with them. Do not let them go out by themselves. So you have to give them those responsibilities and let them know what those responsibilities are. What do you expect out of them? Help them to, for your expectations by sharing your expectations, but also maybe writing those expectations down so they see those, so they can make sure this is what you're expecting them to do. You're expecting them to be on time, and that's not coming in at 9 o'clock when Sabbath school starts at 9 o'clock. It means that you come in 15 minutes early and we start on time. So you give them what your expectations are. Provide a clear ministry description. Listen, whatever ministry you have that person, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's a paid person, whatever ministry it is, from cradle roll all the way up, you need to make sure that you provide a clear ministry description. What is that ministry about? So make sure you have that description. How much authority will they have? Listen, some people, they don't know how to handle that, and some people don't want that authority, but you have to be able to tell them, here is what you're in control. This is your class. You have to take care of this. Here's discipline. This is how we handle discipline. So again, you give them that authority. If you don't level or even put a line that says, hey, this is where your authority starts and this is where your authority ends, understand some people will totally take control and they'll try to outroost you in a lot of sense, because they'll kind of make it like they are the ones that are in control of everything. And that's not the case. So you have to sit down and let them know how much authority they have. Also, who are they accountable to? Okay, listen, so for us, for me in kids ministries, everything under kids, so everything under 5th grade and down, 6th grade and down was me. And so if anything was going on, I was that go-to person. But listen to this. If there was two teachers in a classroom, one of them didn't like the other teacher, they might kind of come to me and say, hey, I don't like this teacher. And I would say, don't come to me. You need to talk to that person. Now, if you two talk and you guys can't work it out, then you come to me. You never come to me first unless you've done all the other things. You always go to that person that's above you or even beside you in a sense. If you have a disagreement, you need to sit down and talk to that person, because what happens is a lot of times they might want something and the leader says no, but then they try to come to you and go, hey, we want this, and you give it to them, and the other leader's like, well, I told them they couldn't have that. You get that whole sense, even what a kid does. A kid will go ask mama, and mama says no, and then they go to dad, and dad says yes. That's not the way it works. The mom comes in and says, why did you do that? I told them no. So you can see the conflict there. So make sure they know who they're accountable to, and also how much time they will serve, Listen, understand that communication is key. Do not leave your people in the dark. Again, even if you only have one person underneath you, do not leave them in the dark. That is one of my pet peeves. I just despise that something happens and I don't know about it, especially in ministry. Because as for us, I'll give you an example. I was children's pastor at Lawrenceville at the time. I get a call from one of my leaders, and it really, well, I won't even say it really wasn't my leader. It was a friend of a leader. And they said, did you hear that so-and-so was told to step out of ministry in your ministry? And I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean they were told? Well, pastor told them and the council told them they had to step out of ministry. And I was like, hold on, I haven't heard this. Now, this had been going on for like 2 days. Okay, I hadn't heard anything. So I go into my pastor and I say, Pastor, I go, what is going on? I heard that they were told, oh, well, sit down, I need to talk to you. And I was like, and then he goes and shares the story. Now, I agree that this person needed to step out of ministry. What I disagreed on is this was my leader and nobody communicated with me that what was going on, that they were asked to step out of this ministry. And that's wrong. And I told our pastor at the time, I said, listen, you did that wrong. I go, I should have been in that process. That is my leader. I needed to be a part of that process. Whether I could make a decision or not, I needed to be in that process. And Pastor, we had to do it quick. And I said, I've been here for 2 days. Why does suddenly I just disappear for 2 days and y'all leave me out? It didn't work that way. And so I will be honest with you, it built a wall between Pastor and I, because I really felt like, well, if you're not going to communicate with me in issues like this, then you're probably not going to communicate with me at all. And understand that those were some of the beginning steps of me seeing myself not being there anymore, because of that, just of that wall going, maybe even in a sense of distrust that I don't know if you really got my back. I don't know if you're ever really going to communicate with me. Communication is key. And listen, I harp on that because I like to know what's going on, and I will tell you what's going on. And sometimes I might tell you too much, but I want you to be informed. I want you to have everything in your hands. So if something comes in front of you, you have everything and you're not going to be caught by surprise. None of us do. We just don't want to be caught by surprise going, oh, what do we do? How do we do this? What happened? Yeah, we don't know. So I like communicating that. And you've got email these days, and it's an easy way to sit down and communicate. If there's something going on, you've got group text, you've got group emails, all those type things, all those tools that you could sit down and use to make sure that you're communicating with your team. Okay. That's a great way to do it. I mean, teachers do it all the time. My wife's a teacher, and she'll get texts from they'll be there, all the teachers in one group text. And so when the principal or the vice principal comes in and says, hey, this is what's happening with so and so, it goes across the board, so everybody is informed. I can't tell you they do it great all the time, but it's a great way to sit down and make sure that you're communicating with everybody, and being able to do that. So let's take another step. Let me take another step, and let's talk about this one. And this one is give authority equal to the responsibility. How much authority should be giving? Only a much authority that they need to get the job done. And the authority should be communicated with those who leaders work with. So listen, you never give authority more authority than what is needed to get this job done. Whatever that might be. It might be cleaning bathrooms. It might be doing check-in as the kids are checking in. It might be teaching a Sabbath school. It might be doing one of your clubs, things like that. It is setting down that you only give them that authority that they need to accomplish that goal. Giving them more authority or giving them less authority, understand you're setting them up not to win. So make sure you give them authority. Let them know. And then you let those leaders that are under them know, hey, this person's in charge. If you have an issue, if you have a problem, go to this person. Now, and that's the way it needs to roll. So that way, everybody is set. Hey, this person's in charge. You've always heard this, saying, and it's like there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. It's kind of that scenario is you have to make sure that people know who's in charge and who's your go-to person. So when we would do a fall festival, and our fall festival, we would sit down and we would have probably 2,000 or 3,000 people come to our fall festival each year. It was just huge. And we would do a little, they would go around to the back of the cars, do the trunk or treat thing, and do things like that. But we had inflatables and all kinds of stuff, but it was huge. And so we had different people that were in charge of certain areas. So that way, if my person was in charge of just taking care of the cars, making sure they had the candy to pass out, whatever it was that they were passing out, that person was in charge. If there was another person that was in charge of just the inflatables, if anything was going on, they were in charge of those. So we always set teams up. I didn't want all that responsibility. Listen, if you want that responsibility, that's great, but I wanted to delegate that responsibility. If anything really came down and it was the ultimate failure, they knew to come to me, and I was always visible. And as a leader, understand you need to be visible. You do not need to always close yourself in and where people can't see you. I am one that I say it many times. People love to see you, especially when you're in charge. And so I like making myself visible. I might not be doing much. My team might be doing it all, but I like to be visible so people know I'm there. Give you an example. Being visible, it helps show people that you care. Okay. At Lawrenceville, I would every Thursday night, our senior adults would have a meal. Okay. They would sit down and do like a whole spread. So I would go in on Thursday nights and I would have a meal with them, and I would sit at a different table every night. Now, we had a senior adult pastor. I understand this. We had a senior adult pastor, but here was my thing. This is this thing about being visible and getting face to face with people. Okay. Getting face to face with people. And so over the weeks, I would take Thursday nights and have supper with them, and it was really good. Okay. It was better than I could cook by all stretches. Those folks know how to cook. And so it was a great meal, but I got to sit down and start meeting some of our senior adults and sitting down and sharing our ministry with them. And so they had like a group singing. They had like our senior adult choir, and they traveled up to Gatlinburg to sing in a competition. And so I got in my car and told my pastor, I said, hey, I'm taking the next 2 days. I'm going to go up and spend time with the senior adults and watch them sing. And it was like I was going to leave that day, come back the next day. And so I walked in, and these senior adults went wild when I walked in. They were like, what are you doing here? And I said, I come to hear you sing. I love you guys. I go, y'all feed me. I want to see you guys succeed. And so I made this huge impression on them. And so after that, the head of the senior adults, he comes in, he goes, okay, what can we do to help you? And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? They go, what can we do? We have senior adults that honestly, they don't want to give up their whole, service time to do something, but they can give you 20, 30 minutes, something like that. And I said, I have a perfect place for you. So what I ended up doing is, and this was even great about it, is I had a senior adult greeter team. My senior adults, so the senior adults, I told them, I said, I need at least two. You will start like 15 minutes before the hour and 15 minutes after the hour. So you can end in that little 30-minute segment. Give me that 30 minutes. Our senior adults loved it. And we had a team of it was like 30 or 40 of senior adults. And what was neat, I didn't even make the schedule. They made their own schedule. They said, we got to take care of, we got a schedule made. We know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. And so what was neat, I said, I went over everything. This is what I expect. Here's what person is. Here's the person who's over scheduled. If you have any conflict, go to them. Don't talk to me. And so they took care of that. The person kind of just handled that. And I said, I'm going to have a kindergartner with you because they're going to help you greet. And they were like, great. And what really made that work is what I found out, our senior adults love kids. They can only love kids for a certain amount of time. Okay. They can only handle that energy for a certain amount of time. But also what I realized is usually the senior adults didn't like the beginning of the service. They would rather miss like the first 5 or 10 minutes of service because sometimes, like for us, it was too loud for them, and they didn't really like the music at the very beginning, so they missed like the first 1 or 2 songs and some of the opening part. And so when they walked in the service, it was right on time for them, and they loved it. And so it was a great team that we had, but we sat down, I gave them the authority that they had, and they knew what was expected out of them, and they became a great team. I ended up having vests embroidered that they would wear, and they loved it. It was just, but so it's those ways that you sit down and build a team and being visual, sitting down and being visual right in front of people. Let me share some more stuff with you. Since you give them authority, let's also do this. We need to establish standards for excellence. Listen, if you're going to do ministry, do it good, do it right, do it even better than what people would ever expect. We want people to honor our commitments. So we honor our commitment. We say we're going to be there on time. We say we're going to do this. We do it. We don't sit down and back out of it unless there was an emergency. We honor our commitments. And that's what we expect out of our team, to honor the commitment that they have made to our ministry. Also, we believe in being people of character and integrity. And so again, that's those things that we set down and we expect you guys, listen, what you seeing people post on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. Listen, some of that's a lot of garbage, and I don't want anybody from the outside church to go, hey, that's a leader. Did you see what they were doing? Did you see them posting? Because I don't want them to post something that is going to be actually questioning their leadership ability, their integrity, or their character. So we want them to make sure that we believe in that. That we work as a team. This is not a Lone Ranger type of a ministry, but it is a ministry that works as a team. We work as a team, and we might fail. We might not do everything right, but we're going to work as a team. Also, that we're committed to ongoing training and development. As you're here at this conference, you're gaining knowledge, and I hope that you take the knowledge that you have gained throughout yesterday and today, and you share it with those around you, whether they're above you or below you in ministry, whether they're people over you in leadership or under you in leadership. You need to sit down and help them to share what you've learned, that it might be something they pick up on, but also you need to make sure your leaders, all your leaders under you, are always sitting down and continuing to learn. Listen, if you fail to learn, you're going to die. If you're just not willing to learn anything, you will fade away. It is just the way it is. We always need to keep learning. We are committed to excellence, and we're committed to results, not performance. Now, remember what I said. We're committed to results, not performance. Listen, performance, sometimes we fail in performance, but I want to know what our results are. What kind of results? And so that to know those results, I want to sit down and know how many kids, what did they learn? Were they able to learn those scriptures? Were they able to recite those scriptures? Did they give their heart to Christ? Did they get baptized? I want to make sure that we sit down and we set a goal to do that in our ministry. I don't want to be just a showy ministry. And believe me, I've been there. Okay, I've been in a ministry where I felt like we were just a show. And I told you that last night, that I felt like many times we were just putting a production on every weekend for our kids. And it was entertaining. And I think it was educational, but I don't think we saw the results that we needed to see. And when we took that step to do where God called us to do, what we envisioned it to be, then we began to see the results. We began to see kids changed. And listen, it was amazing that when we have kids and their teachers, public school teachers, would call our church and say, hey, I just want to let you know, your kids have been talking you guys up at school. They have been sharing about what you guys have been doing. I've been hearing them talk between other kids. That is amazing. And listen, those are things I want to share with the team, but those are the things that, like a Sabbath school teacher who might be involved with that child, I want to make sure that they know that they're making some huge success. And so they're seeing results, because sometimes those people don't get to hear the results. And so you need to make sure that you're sharing that with them. But when I say that also, is we need to be excellent in ministry. Okay, listen, I have heard for years, it's just kids. It's just kids. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's hogwash, okay? Sorry, I'm country. That's hogwash. Because that irks me. Is what? So our kids don't deserve excellence. They deserve mediocre, or they deserve just enough to get by with. That doesn't cut it. We have got kids that are being pulled in every which way, and what we do needs to be done with excellence. You would not expect your pastor to come up and give a sermon if he had not studied and done his research and done everything and prayed over that. And if he didn't do those things and just came out and talked, you would be upset. And so the same sense in kids ministries, the kids might not get it all by all means. They might not understand all the time that you have put in and the preparation and everything like that. And honestly, I don't think they care. But when it's done with excellence, it's such an amazing thing. And so, I look to outside sources and see how they do things to learn that. I mean, Listen, whether we like Disney or not, Disney, when you sit down and you go to a stage performance or you see them out on the street, there is a level of excellence that is expected out of those people. And as a cast member, there's a level of excellence that's expected out of you to take care of those guests and things like that. And so we sat down and we need to be excellent in ministry. And so if you're using the creative arts in your ministry, you do it well. Don't just throw a puppet on your hand and just start without even practicing or going over what you're going to do. Make yourself look good. Back when I started years and years and years and years ago, we would watch Christian TV, and some of the puppetry that would come on would just be awful. And I know you're some of you are in my age, and you can remember those times you would see it go like this, and the puppet wouldn't be looking at you, and they would be flipping the lid, and they would be doing object lessons and drop stuff, and you would just kind of laugh at it, but you know where it's coming from. But I want to make sure that when we come out on stage, that we do an object lesson, it looks well. Now, sometimes things fail, and it just is what it is. But I want to make sure that we've done everything to prepare our team to do the best that they can do. I want to give them the best that I can, and I want to make sure they're trained and prepared to do that excellence. So make sure you do excellent ministry, guys. That is just vital to sit down and do that. Let's go on. Let's go on. Let me share another one with you. Train workers in the skills necessary to do that job, to meet the standards, your standards. And here's what I mean by that. When you sitting down and training your team, for me, I would go, I do it. So I've already started doing it. I told you last night, I don't do anything, that I don't expect my team to do. And my team knows that in every job in kids ministry that I've done it in some sort of way. And so they know that. So I do it. And then I do this. I do it and they watch, or you watch. And so they watch me do it. And then we go, you do it and I watch. Okay. So now I'm going to watch them do it, and I'm going to help them, and I will critique them and to help them make sure they're doing it correctly. And then guess what? You're going to do it. I'm not going to be there. You're going to do it. But it doesn't end there. And this is where key comes in. You do it and train someone else. You do it and train someone else. Listen, you should always have somebody underneath you. My pastor, one of my first pastors I worked for, he said, listen, never go somewhere alone. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, you should always have somebody with you, because he goes, the beauty of it is you're always training. You're always putting something into them. So always, if you're going to visit somebody, take somebody with you. If you're going to sit down and do a Sabbath school lesson, have somebody with you. Bring somebody along, whether they're going to help you eventually or not. Sit down and start planting those seeds of leadership in them. And even if it's a teenager, listen, there is nothing wrong in having teenagers. Some of my best leaders were teenagers, guys. I'm telling you, they were teenagers. Listen, we did something during the summer that was really cool. We kind of stopped all the groups and everything, our clubs and everything like that. And we did an elective. And so what we had a list of like 10 different electives, and each elective was about 3 weeks long, 3, maybe 4 weeks long. So they could learn to crochet, they could learn to sew, they can learn computer skills, they could learn to pottery, they could learn cooking, so they could learn puppetry, they could do anything they wanted for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And some of those classes were led by teenagers. And let me tell you, they were the best. And what was neat was we were sitting down and teaching them just everyday things that they could do. But in those, we had lessons involved, Bible lessons that were going right along with them. So our cooking, we would talk about putting the ingredients together. And it's just like how God puts all these little things together in your life that makes something really neat. And so it's those type of things. And so we would sit down, And each of from cooking to sewing to crocheting to woodworking. I mean, we had it all. And we would sit down and use those classes as a Bible class, but it gave our regular teachers a break because we used just other people to do those. And we found their gifts and talents. And we said, hey, if you can sew or if you can crochet, would you be willing to teach kids that for 4 weeks or 3 weeks? And we had people coming out of the woodwork. And we would go, okay, if you're good at woodworking, any way that you can build a couple projects with the kids. We had people who had never worked with kids who are willing to give 4 or 8 weeks during the summer to sit down and do that, but also share a lesson in that. And our teenagers were just amazing. And one thing about teenagers, even in our Sabbath school and our children's ministries church, a kids church, and things like that, teenagers kind of have a scope with kids, and kids think that teenagers are cool because they're kind of looking up to them. So having them on your side is great, okay? Don't underestimate teenagers. Now, listen, you have to understand teenagers can only handle so much as well. You can't put more on them than what they can handle, okay? And you can't expect that. I know I had leaders and I had teenage leaders and adult leaders, and adult leaders would go, well, they're just playing. Listen, it's okay. They can play a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. So you have to understand that and be okay with that. That, you know, they might have a 45-minute class and maybe 15 minutes of they might just be playing, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong as long as they're getting what's expected out of them done, and they're doing it well. And so get your teenagers involved and make sure you do that and train them. Listen, those are going to be your next leaders, your major leaders in your group. I'm telling you, you have to, don't wait. Listen, if we don't grab our teenagers now, somebody else will grab them, like I've been telling you yet last night and everything. Even our kids are that way. But teenagers especially, if we give them something to do and make them feel accomplished and make them feel like they're special, make sure that, you know, that they're hooked in, they're more than apt to stay there, okay? They're more than apt to know, hey, I like that feeling. I enjoy helping others and serving others. And they're more apt to stay in the church for that. And especially in that teenage age where they're being pulled in every which direction, it's one of those. So I'll give you an example. I had we have our kids ministries. We would call the ones who were going in. I alluded to it last night, talking about that we gave them discipleship classes, and then we would give them jobs. Even our kids had jobs in our kids church and our kids ministries, from running our cameras, that because we would videotape all of our services and things like that. We were doing all that years ago before the whole Zoom thing and everything like that. We were recording. And so we were recording because we would take those and send them to the kids who weren't able to attend that weekend. We would give them a copy of the service. So we would run DVDs off or VHS tapes off back then, okay? And we would give them to the kids and say, hey, here's this weekend service. Sorry, you missed it. And so they had an opportunity to see the weekend service. They would bring it back in, and we would be able to use that tape again and do that. And then we got into DVDs, and then we could just give out the DVDs to them. But also those were great ways to give to our first-time visitors, to let them see what was going on in our ministry. But kids did all that. They ran all that. They ran the switchers. They ran the cameras. They ran my sound. I had teenagers and kids running my sound, okay? I mean, they were running, 12 mics on stage at one time. I mean, they were that good. So we would sit down and do that. But to talk about it, I had a young man, and his dad was a U.S. Marshal. And I remember in one of our classes, this dad coming in and saying, listen, I don't want my kid doing this anymore. And it's taking time. He needs to play football. And you're cringing just like me. It's one of those cringe moments. You're like, oh, we'll hold on. And it was just a sad moment to see this young man miss something that he was really looking forward to do and enjoying doing, have to step out because dad wanted him to be more like a man and play football. I think even probably worse than that, it was probably an impressionable moment. It was an impressionable moment on me, but I know it's probably on this young man. that he will always remember that moment that he was singled out in a way and pulled out of something that, and I hate that. That's one of those that you just go, you wish you could kind of erase it away from the memory, because I know that it played an up part in his upbringing and how he even respected his dad and even his mom at the time. And so, it's one of those that we sat down as leaders, we try our best, and we teach our kids and we teach our teenagers and things like that. But sometimes things happen, and we keep praying over it. And we prayed over that young man and continue to pray even years after, because we just knew that was going to be one of those moments. Let me keep going. Let's see. Let's do this and provide knowledge and inform your team's needs to succeed. So share information like goals, plans, changes. Without information, people cannot take ownership. And I've kind of already alluded to this. This is kind of in the communication part, is share your dreams, your visions, and everything like that. When we went through a building plan at Lawrenceville, we had this huge building plan. I actually came in on, they had already had the plans for it and things like that. And so when I came in, I said, Pastor, I go, this doesn't really meet kids. And so I said, listen, I've been kind of praying, talking about this. And I said, here's what I would like to see happen. And so I was fortunate enough, I was ended up being friends with a guy who was a entertainment, he was an amusement park designer. Okay, so he designs amusement parks. So like Superman ride, he designed the Superman ride, from the whole theming as you walking into the gates and everything. That was his thing at Six Flags. He designed that, and he designed a lot more. And I said, listen, here's what I would love to see our kids building look like. Can you put some pictures together? And I said, yeah. So he put some pictures together. Now understand, these renderings, if I were to go out and hire somebody to do this, was around $40,000 to $50,000 at the time. Now it's even more than that. And here's this man did it for free for us. Okay. And so I end up blowing them up to these huge posters that I set out in our church. And I said, here's what I told the pastor. Pastor, he loved it. And he said, but we don't have money for that. He goes, that's not in the budget, in the building budget to do it. And I said, can I ask our people can we raise money for it? And he's like, yeah, you could do that. And so we set the pictures out. And what was so neat about it is I told him, I said, give me just 5 minutes on stage to talk about it. And I go, that's all I need. And so we took 5 minutes, shared about what our dream was and vision for that. And I'd already shared with our team. Our team was on board. They were excited about it. And we just knew that God was going to provide. Okay, we knew that. I don't know how. I just know that God was going to provide. And so we laid it out to the church. And I said, listen, whatever you can give, you can help us give, great. And so we had bulletin boards up, and here's what we were decorating each room, and we had pictures of it. And like this one object was going to be $500, and this one, a carpet, was going to be, $1,000, and this was going to be $100. This was going to be $25. And I said, listen, if you could go and grab one of those and pay for it for us, that would be great. Understand, at the end of that weekend, we had raised over $45,000 to take care of the interior of our building and pay for it. Remember I talked to last night about the enthusiasm, being excited about something. You got to be excited about what God's going to do, even if you don't see it, even if it's here and it's not out in front of you. Get excited about it. And our people loved it. And so what was so neat is when we got it all done, we had it all themed out in every which direction. Our people were so proud of it. And so I would literally, I kid you not, I would go into Kroger in Lawrenceville, and I could hear across the aisle one of our members sharing with somebody, you got to bring your kids and let them see this building. This is amazing. And so it became a tool. Listen, we were themed out. I mean, it was themed out. We had looked like an old antique car coming out of the wall. It was a big cartoon limousine coming out of the wall, because our whole theme was kind of like a movie theater. Everybody was a star. Our kids, everybody coming in was a star. And so they were proud of it. They were so proud. And so they would be telling everybody. And so it wasn't, I didn't have to go out sharing. They shared, they did that. And so it's us providing that information for our team and everything like that. What was neat is when we were going into this building right before it opened up, we were running in a really small, they put us in a small building because the youth had taken over the kids building. They had put us in the old sanctuary, and we only could fit maybe 100 in there. And I said, so when we go into the new building, you know, there's 300 some chairs that were in the building, in our kids sanctuary room. And I said, we're going to fill those. And the pastor was like, are you guys ready for that? And I said, listen, all this time we building our team bigger to do that. So we were sharing, we were bringing on new leaders and everything like that. And they're like, well, you know, it's not really that big. Do you really need me? I'm like, we're going to need you. Just hold tight. And when we walked into the new building, understand, it exploded. I mean, we had so many kids. We were just like, oh my gosh. And it was such an amazing time. But understand that happened because we sat down and shared it. We shared the vision. We shared the expectations. We shared what God has shared with us. And it caught like fire and grew into a forest fire in that sense. So always share. So let's keep going on, and because my time will run out. Do this: provide appropriate positive feedback, reinforce positive performance. And you're going to do this by giving cards, notes, emails, rewards, advancements, anything like that. I want you to make sure you thank your people. Make sure you sit down and give them positive feedback. If they do something wrong, like I told you about Janet yesterday, you critique them. You have those conversations with them. But on that flip side, you make sure that when they're doing good, you make sure you make it public and you make sure they know it, because they need to know they're succeeding. You like to be, listen, I enjoy somebody saying, hey, man, you've done a great job. I appreciate what you did. I like that. I like that in a note card. I like that in emails and things like that. But I also like, you know what, somebody just coming face to face and saying, hey, I heard about what you did. That is amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. Was awesome. You went above and beyond to do that. Make sure you do that. And we would always try to do our best to do that. So if our leaders were calling kids who were out because they were sick, or they had a kid had got an achievement at school and they called them, or they made sure they recognized that kid, I wanted to recognize the leader for recognizing that kid, because those are extra steps that honestly I didn't expect out of them, but they were taking those extra steps to make sure that they went above and beyond. So provide that feedback. Let them know they're doing good. If they're not doing good, you do that appropriately and let them know that it's okay. But if we don't critique them and we don't sit down and tell them they're not doing it right, they'll never do it right. So you always give that feedback. Always sit down and give that feedback. All right, so let's keep going, and let's see. Trust your team. Now, I talked about this a little bit last night. Be sensitive to the needs, the interests, and the concerns. Listen to ideas. Delegate responsibility. Share your dreams and visions. Allow the team to be a part of the goal-setting process, and be honest. Okay. Now, let me just say this. You continue to hear me talk about sharing your dream and vision. If you don't share your dream and vision, nobody will ever get where you want to go. Okay. You'll never get there. So you got to share it, but also sit down and trust your team. When you give them something to do, don't micromanage them. People do not like to be micromanaged. And I learned that from mistakes. Okay. So I don't know about you, but I don't care if I have one person under me or 100. Don't micromanage. Give them the responsibility. Let them do it. If they fail, then we can go over the process and deal with that. But we want to trust them. So if they said they're going to be there at 9 o'clock to set everything up, you trust them to do that. Until they prove themselves wrong, there's no reason you can't trust them. Okay. So you trust them. You trust those leaders, and listen to them. Listen to the ideas they have. So when you sit down and say, hey, we're going to do it this way, and somebody says, well, that's probably going to cause a car congestion. What if we brought them in this way? Listen to those ideas, because listen, again, when you have more people under you sitting down and throwing you ideas, some of the greatest things happen. And so make sure you listen to ideas. Don't sit down and go, yeah, that was okay. No, that wouldn't work. Don't throw their ideas under the bus. Okay. Don't do that. Listen to them, give them the appropriate, listen that, what they deserve that. That's being respectful. So make sure you do, and be honest. Listen, if things are not going to succeed, you let them know that. If we don't have the money for it, it's not going to look this way, or it's not going to happen. I don't mind being honest. People want honesty. And sometimes that's tough for us to do in church, because sometimes we like to hide what's going on in church for some reason. I don't know why, but people want you to be honest. So be honest and let them know what's going on, that, this class didn't go over like we thought it was going to go, so we're just going to cancel it. It's okay. So let them know that, to sit down and be honest. So let's keep going on. Also this, give permission to fail. Listen, view failure as a growing experience. Establish guidelines for failure, and a team is more creative when they're willing to take risk if they know it's okay to fail. Listen, not everything that you're going to do today in ministry is going to succeed. How many of you have failed? Raise your hand. I'll raise both, okay? Because I have failed many, many times, okay? I have failed, and it's okay to fail. And it's okay to let your team, it's okay to know it's okay to fail. Listen, you don't know it's going to work until we do it. And so when we sat down at a church that we were working at, and we were working with our fall festival, in years prior, before going to this church, they did a fall festival type thing, and they would have maybe 50 or 60 people. And I said, listen, that's great. Here's what we want to do. Here's what I see it. I believe it could be this way. And they were like, but what if we do all that and we fail? And I'm like, well, it's okay. We just had a lot more candy and a lot more people come out. That's okay. It's not a big of a deal. And so when we first did it and all the people came out and they saw our leaders were like, oh my gracious. And they said, we didn't fail, Pastor Darren, we didn't fail. And I said, no, we didn't fail. I go, where we're failing is we probably don't have enough stuff now because even more people came. And so we started mad dashing, getting stuff and going to stores across the street, grabbing stuff because we knew we were going to be out. But it was okay to fail. We knew that, you know what, if it didn't make it, it's okay. We go back and punt. We've always got another play that we can do. So it's okay to fail. Now listen, if you're always failing, now there might be something wrong, okay? So you can't always fail, but don't worry. Don't be so conservative not to be able to take some risk. You need to take some risk in ministry because some of the biggest risks have some of the biggest rewards in ministry. Okay. And I know you've heard that, but sometimes we just need to take some risk in ministry, and whether it's doing something different that has been done this way, 100 years prior to that. Christmas, we would always read the Bible story, and we'd have the people play the live nativity up on the kids would come up and play it on stage. And I was like, that's cute. But why don't we do something? Because my whole thing is, what results did we get? Well, we got parents in the seats. Okay, that's great. Is there any more results? Well, kids got to do something else. That's great. Well, what else? And we didn't really have a lot of results. I said, what if we do something different that has results? And they were like, well, what if we fail? That was the big, and I said, it's okay. We'll go back to what we did before. If it doesn't go over well, then we'll go back to what we did before. Okay, that's good. Well, we never went back to the way we did it before. So if that tells you how well it went. So you have to take some risk. And sometimes your leaders might not be willing to take that risk. And so they have to trust you that this is going to be the way to do it. Let's keep going. I know my time is almost out. And let me finish up here, and let me see if I got one more. Might be, yes, this is it. Treat others like you want to be treated. Don't disrespect your team by not giving them credit. Do not disrespect the team by not correcting a problem. Do not disrespect a team by not asking for their opinions. Do not disrespect a team by not sharing information. And do not disrespect a team by showing favoritism. So all those things are just invaluable, is making sure that you give credit where credit is due. Make sure you give credit where credit is due. That's huge. And also, if there's a problem, you correct it. listen, do not let problems fester, okay? Do not let problems fester, because if they do, it will be a bigger problem than what it is. And I listen, I had a leader backbiting. I mean, he would talk behind my back, and somebody brought it to my attention. I didn't know it, and brought it to my attention. I just went to him and I said, listen, I go, if you're going to talk about me that way to other leaders, you need to step off our team. He goes, I've been here for 20 years. I'll do what I want to. And I said, no, you will not be a part of my team. You can either straighten up or you'll step out. And so I go to pastor. I said, here's the conversation I had. He goes, he needs to be off your team. And so listen, I took him off my team. He didn't get emails. And when I pulled other people in the team, he came in one night to do his class, and there were other people teaching his class because he didn't believe I was going to put somebody else in it. I met him outside the door and I said, listen, you are not on our team until you decide to straighten up. You can go right back out the door you came in. Because you will not talk to leaders and put me down or put anybody else in our staff down or anything like that. The next week he gave me a call and said, hey, Pastor Darren, I want to apologize. I missed doing my class. And he goes, would you let me do that class? And I said, are you willing to sit down and stop backbiting? Because if I ever hear that again, listen, you'll never step foot in this ministry building again. And lo and behold, became one of the best ministry team members we ever had. So you have to work, when problems arise, you have to address them. And that's difficult. Listen, I know all of us, we don't like confrontation. Some of you might thrive on confrontation. Okay. Great for you. I don't like confrontation. I'm not one to like confrontation, but I know that if there's a situation that doesn't get resolved, it's going to be a bigger situation. And so you have to deal with it. And I can tell you story upon story about that and doing those things. Listen, I know the title of this class was talking about team building. So I hope it gave you some insight on team building. Again, tell you one thing. If you want to recruit people, do it face to face. Get to know the people and talk to them. Share your vision. Pray God to give you people's faces in your mind that you can go talk to, and do that. Listen, a team is invaluable, and a team will rise and fall with you. But listen, you can never take the team higher on the ladder than what you are. So as you climb that ladder, you take your team up with you. They cannot surpass you as a leader. You're always going to be bringing them up behind you. So as you grow your leadership. As you take a next step on that ladder, you help your leaders take another step in ministry and another step in leadership. It's invaluable. Budget-wise, if you're interested in having a budget, email me. I will sit down and talk to you about budgeting, okay? Budgeting in itself is a class-long type thing, but I can help you at least kind of set up some ideas and setting your budget together, what to expect. One thing I will tell you with budgets, if they say, hey, what do you need this year in ministry? Whatever you come up with, whatever you say, well, curriculum's this, supplies is this is what I need. You add 15% to it, okay? You always add more, because that's going to be the incidentals in budgeting, okay? Because here's the thing, like for me, when I went in and said, hey, when I received, like our largest budget was like $60,000 at the time, I had actually asked for like $78,000. Okay. I asked for quite a bit. And so the reason I did that is because I knew they wouldn't approve it. But when they approved it, it was what I asked for, or what I knew I needed at that time. So always add a little more onto that. If they don't like it, then it's okay. But again, on budgeting, if you need that, I will put my information up. Make sure that you contact me. I'll be more than happy to take time with you individually and share that with you, and we can help you do that. I'm going to turn it back over to Miss Linda. We'll ask if you've got questions. I'm here. I'll answer all I can. I think your next group starts at 6.
Yes, thank you, Darren. That was excellent. Appreciate all your information very much. The next session is going to be the general session, and it does start at 6. There's going to be a couple of short videos I show you before that. So just stay where you are and they will move you.
That will all gear up. So